Welcome to The Explainer. We're about to break down a single number that basically runs your financial life in the US, your credit score. And we're going to focus on the biggest challenge, how you build one from scratch. So if you're new to the US, you run into this weird problem right away. It's like a paradox. You could have plenty of money in the bank, but without a US credit history, you're basically a financial ghost. So the real problem you've got to solve isn't about money, it's about history. And let's be clear, this is a huge deal. It's not just some minor thing. Your credit score is pretty much the master key to your financial life here. I mean, it determines whether you can rent an apartment, get a loan, or even how much you'll pay for car insurance. It really is that important. All right, so here's our game plan. First, we'll tackle this whole credit invisibility thing head on. Then, and this is the cool part, we're gonna pull back the curtain and reverse engineer the exact FICO formula. You know, the one that almost every lender uses. We'll pinpoint the two big levers that control most of your score, touch on the other pieces, and then wrap up with a strategic toolkit you can use right away. Okay, first thing you need to get your head around is this. When you arrive in the US, it's a complete financial reset. You could have been a financial rock star back home with a perfect credit history, but here, none of that matters. It just doesn't transfer. You're starting from absolute zero. And this quote just nails the frustration, doesn't it? The system is totally focused on local data. It doesn't see your bank account balance. It doesn't care about your financial history from another country. If you don't have a US credit history, you don't get trusted. It's this catch-22, a real closed loop. So how do we break out of that loop? Well, we have to understand how the system thinks. The good news is, your credit score isn't some random, mysterious number. It's actually the result of a very specific formula. So, let's take it apart piece by piece. Okay, this right here, this is the playbook. This is the FICO blueprint. And it's not some big secret. You can see it's made up of 5 different things. But look closer. 2 of them are the heavy hitters. Payment history and how much you owe, that's 65% of your entire score right there. 65%. That is where all your power is. So, at its core, what is the score really doing? It's just a way for lenders to measure risk. That's it. A high score tells them you're a safe bet. A low score? Not so much. And that risk level directly translates into real money for you, like getting a lower interest rate on a loan. It's basically a prediction of how you'll handle your money. All right, so since those 2 pieces are so massive, that's exactly where we're gonna focus our attention. If you can get a handle on just these 2 things, your payment history and what you owe, you're steering 65% of your entire credit score. That's huge. All right, let's talk about the absolute king of them all. 35% of your score comes down to this one thing, your payment history. It's all about answering one simple but critical question. Do you pay your bills when you say you're going to? And here's something you really need to understand. The math here is, well, it's not fair. Building a good score takes time and consistency, like slowly adding bricks to a wall. But one single mistake, one late payment, can knock a huge hole in that wall, and it takes way longer to repair the damage than it did to cause it. Okay, on to the second biggest piece of the pie, coming in at a whopping 30%. This one's all about amounts owed, but most people call it credit utilization. It's simply a measure of how much of your available credit line you're actually using. So the real trick here, the thing most people miss, is that it's not about the dollar amount you owe. It's about the percentage. It's how much you owe compared to your total credit limit. If you're maxing out your cards, it looks like you're in financial trouble. So, the simple rule of thumb, keep your balances under 30% of your limit. And honestly, the lower you can get it, the better. Okay, let's talk about the other 35%. Now, these next few pieces don't have the same heavyweight punch as the first 2, but you absolutely need them to build a really strong, stable score for the long haul. Think of these 3 as proving you have experience. Length of history is simple. The older your accounts, the better. Credit mix is about showing you can juggle different kinds of debt. Like a credit card and maybe a car loan. And new credit is basically a check to see if you're desperately applying for a bunch of credit all at once, which can look risky.
Now that length of history part, that's the tough one for newcomers, because you're starting from day one. This is the one part of the score where there are no shortcuts. The system is built to reward time and patience, and you just can't fake that.
Okay, so now you know the blueprint. You know how the score is built. That's the what. Now let's get to the how. We need to talk about the actual tools you can use to put this knowledge into practice and start building your score from zero. This little chart is your roadmap. It connects the tools directly to the parts of the score they help build. See? A secured credit card is like your ground floor entry. It's perfect for building that all-important payment history. A credit builder loan, that helps with your credit mix by showing you can handle a different type of loan. And being an authorized user, well, that's a clever hack. It lets you piggyback on someone else's good history, which can give you a massive boost, especially on the length of history part. All right, you've got the plan, you've got the tools, but I know what you're thinking. This all sounds great, but how long is this actually going to take? Well, here's a realistic timeline for you. You can actually get your very first FICO score pretty fast, usually within 3 to 6 months of starting. Then after about a year to 18 months of using credit responsibly, you'll start to see some really solid improvement. But let's be real, building a truly great, mature credit history, that's a marathon, not a sprint. We're talking 2 years or more. So that brings us to the final question, really. Is your credit score just a number you're trying to build, or is it something more, like a reputation you have to earn? Because when you look at it, every single on-time payment, every smart decision you make, it's like another entry in your public financial diary. Ultimately, this isn't about trying to trick a system. It's about proving, step by step, that you're reliable.